In July of 1997, in the village of Shelburne, Vermont, Stan Baker and his partner Peter Harrigan entered the town hall to request a marriage license. The clerk on duty regretted to tell them that this wasn't possible. It was against the law. So they and two other couples promptly joined a lawsuit against the state, led by two Vermont attorneys, Susan Murray and Beth Robinson, and a third, based in Boston, at GLAD, GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, named Mary Bonauto. Mary had been working toward that moment since she started at GLAD in 1990. The case of Baker versus Vermont, filed in the midst of difficulties in marriage litigation happening in Hawaii, was the carefully planned first salvo in a battle that would consume the next 20 years of her life. Their case led to a sympathetic ruling, followed by a vote by the legislature making Vermont the first state in the country to recognize civil unions.
This is the first time that any state Supreme Court in this country has not only recognized that same-sex families exist, but for the first time has recognized that they have the same needs and deserve the same protections and rights as all other couples and families. That's a first. That's a legal and cultural milestone.
But it stopped short of recognizing marriage itself. In 2003, the battle moved to Massachusetts. In the case known as Goodridge versus Department of Public Health, GLAD's Mary Bonauto represented 7 gay and lesbian couples, most of them parents, who were denied the freedom to marry.
Mary Bonauto humanized the arguments of the legal debate that she was addressing with regard to same-sex marriage, so judges could see the people and not be afraid by the idea. So judges really couldn't resist the arguments that she was making to them.
A 4-3 decision by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court made it the first state high court to rule that excluding gay people from civil marriage violates the equality rights and liberty rights guaranteed to all under the state constitution.
When same-sex couples marry, what happens? You celebrate their commitment, their responsibility to one another. There's more joy. You know, they're tied more to the community. These are win-wins for everybody. So in a small case comes a big message.
Within 6 months, 6,100 same-sex couples married in Massachusetts, continuing at a rate of over 1,000 per year. In her home state of Maine, Mary and GLAD were among those leading the effort to make marriage by same-sex couples legal. And in 2009, Maine joined Vermont and New Hampshire as the first states to do so by legislative vote.
Our canvass and field teams confirm we're on the right track. They've had one-on-one persuasion conversations with more than 160,000 conflicted voters.
An intense public education campaign she and others tirelessly led for the next 2 years moved public opinion vote by vote, producing the first ever direct ballot vote affirming the right to marriage for all in 2012. Yet despite all the progress, barriers remained. At the federal level, the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, enacted in 1996, had denied the federal benefits of marriage to same-sex couples. It also allowed states to refuse the recognition of such marriages sanctioned in other states. Mary, with other private counsel joining the GLAD team, led the first strategic responses to overturning DOMA in 2 multi-plaintiff challenges, Gill and Peterson, filed in the First and Second Circuits. Those arguments were taken up in United States versus Windsor, in which the longtime partner and wife, Edith Windsor, was denied the estate tax benefits conferred by marriage after the death of her spouse. In a 5-4 ruling, the arguments won the day, striking down DOMA as inherently unconstitutional, on the exact grounds GLAD argued in the very first case.
I'm actually pleased that the court continues to understand that double standards and attempts to disadvantage gay people simply because of who they are is not even rational lawmaking. It's not legitimate.
Well, so where do you see the fight going next? Is it a lot of legal battles? Are they political battles? Is it still a mix of both, as we've seen for many years?
I think it's a mix of both, but I do have to say that I think this issue will return to the court.
When you say return to the court, do you mean the Supreme Court? Because that's what we were just talking about.
That court, yes.
That court, yeah.
Yes.
True to her prediction, months later, as one of 3 attorneys for the cases all now known as Obergefell versus Hodges, Mary argued before the Supreme Court of the United States for the right of same-sex couples to marry nationwide. 2 months later, on June 26, 2015, in the majority opinion, Justice Kennedy concluded, "It would misunderstand these men and women to say they disrespect the idea of marriage. Their plea is that they do respect it so deeply that they seek to find its fulfillment for themselves. Their hope is not to be excluded from one of civilization's oldest institutions. They ask for equal dignity in the eyes of the law. The Constitution grants them that right."
There are a lot of high-profile people, high-profile lawyers, high-profile activists, high-profile plaintiffs who have been involved in this issue as it has progressed through the courts and progressed through American politics. But the alpha and the omega, the architect of this whole strategy, really is a knowable person, a woman named Mary Bonauto. She started it, she plotted its course, and today she finished it. Decisive, done, nationwide, forever.